Today's Donald Trump economic speech had several goals, among them getting his campaign back on track. Protesters at the event, though, well, they had different plans. Take a look at this.
Thank you. I will say the Bernie Sanders people had far more energy and spirit. I will say.
Now, despite those distractions, Donald Trump did manage to focus on taxes, regulation, job creation. So with the economy remaining, of course, a bright spot for him in the polls, will this new effort succeed for him politically? Joining me now, Michael Tobin, Ken Blackwell, and Naomi Schaefer-Riley. Ken, let me start with you. A lot of people said today was a Donald Trump reset. Showed a lot of poise with 14 interruptions. Do you think he hit the mark with respect to the speech itself?
Yes, I do. I think groups from the Club for Growth to the Family Research Council will be very pleased with the direction of his remarks and his plan today. It was both capital-friendly, family-friendly, as well as worker-friendly, which is so important. Hillary Clinton has positioned herself where she has to embrace the status quo. She has to represent 4 more years of Barack Obama and anemic economic growth and people falling out of the workplace. So I think he, in fact, did hit the reset button, and he, in fact, put together a coalition through his speech that can be a winning coalition in the fall.
Naomi, I did find it interesting, Donald Trump, infrastructure, which is not typically your conservative position, and then today child care. It's probably a smart move, particularly with where he is in the polls with women and the new sort of reality of the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, but it seems like he's basically saying, oh, well, my daughter tells me that she thinks this is an important issue, so now I'm going to put a tax loophole in for deductions for child care. But this is not the way the conservatives need to think about the economy. We need to think about individuals making the right choices for themselves and their families. And for some women, that may mean working more. For some women, that may mean working less. Some women have different kinds of child care needs. And the idea that the government is going to pick the winners, it's the same thing in child care as it is in everything else.
Would he be picking the winners, or would he just be saying women in general who have these unusual schedules, some have to pick up the kids, some have to drop them off, whatever it may be, is it giving everyone an opportunity, or is it actually picking a winner?
I think it is picking a winner. Some women decide that they want to stay home with their children, and why shouldn't we give them a tax deduction? I mean, I really think that this is a case where we need to let women have the autonomy to make their own decision and not use the tax code as a way of making people's child care decisions for them.
Michael, how did you see the overall speech?
Pulling up 10, 20,000 feet, and your earlier guest did a very good job hashing out the substance of it. Personally, I think the substance was patently absurd, but putting that aside, here we are talking about him saying he was going to reset his campaign, and all he did was show America that he could read from a teleprompter and not have an outburst. So on the process side of things, he is burning calendar days. This is now what we're talking about instead of, I guess, the substance and issues which people might take serious issue with. And we're talking about how he didn't explode, how he seemed a bit more stable, and how he presented an argument that now is going to be discussed over the next several days, if not a week, instead of the sort of absurdity beginning, middle, and end of his campaign.
Ken, I mean, I think 3 tax brackets, 12, 28, 33%, are substantive. I think the issue of hunkering down and making sure we're not ripped off on trade agreements is pretty substantive. I think, tax policy, particularly for businesses, is substantive. I think that's not a fair assessment of the speech.
Well, look, he talked about cutting tax rates. Secondly, what he did is he said that we had $2 trillion parked offshore, and he wants to entice it back into the country. We know that capital follows the path of least resistance and greatest opportunity, and he is talking about directionally creating an opportunity society here, not only for workers, but for capital to come back to, in fact, fuel our economic growth. At the end of the day, I thought what he was saying was that, culturally, we have become a culture where earning money doesn't entitle you to it, but wanting money does, and he wants to reverse that. He knows that Hillary Clinton has to embrace the status quo, and the status quo, as Reagan said, is Latin for the mess that we're in. Let her hug the mess and let him talk about the way out back to a path of opportunity.
You don't agree with that,
and morning in America.
Naomi, you
no,
don't agree
I
with
think that one of the, obviously, I mean, you can ask yourself, why it is that Donald Trump is sending, his industries abroad to make his clothes in Mexico and
I
other
think
places.
he says it's because of these very issues, the regulations, higher taxes. As someone who's trying to do this manufacturing himself, he's a prime example of the high hurdles. Let's bring them all down so not only Donald Trump, but all American industry can come home.
I'm happy to bring the corporate tax rates down and other tax rates down, but I think what this speech really forgot about is the American consumer. If he really wanted to reach women and mothers who are the primary consumers of goods in their household, he would be talking about how we could get lower prices. I mean, American women are going to buy clothes, and if you ask them, what are the primary differences between now and buying things for their children, that their mothers did 30 years ago, clothes are cheaper, food is cheaper, all of these things are cheaper as a result. Free trade, and the idea that he wants to close our the idea that he wants to close, he's for trade.
He's for trade, and he doesn't want to be isolationist.
Right. He's telling everyone, oh, I'm going to get you the best deal. I'm going to all those Chinese people, they're idiots. I'm going to get the best deal for Americans that's good for us and not good for them. I mean, this is absurd.
What comes first, the job or going out to Walmart to buy cheap plastic stuff? Which one should we be focused on first and foremost?
I think we have to be focused on both. They're both a part of the economy. We're all producers and we're all consumers.
All right, guys, let's leave it there. Thank you very much.
I think what he said, Charles, was that he wanted to get the economy growing again. He wanted to get incomes up. We know that we've had income stagnation for way too long.
Sure, everybody knows that. Everyone feels it, and that echoes a lot in the polls.